So tonight's presentation again is entitled Pondering the Nature of Self. Do we truly live in an ocean of cosmic consciousness? As above, so below is an ancient maxim we often hear within mystical circles. It prompts us to ponder, to examine the correspondences that exist between all levels of our known universe. Another mystical saying we hear is that we live in an ocean of cosmic consciousness. Can we actually find a way to experience what these maxims mean? Pondering the nature of self, we consider the relationship between the micro and the macro in our attempt to answer those questions. Many of us made our own correlations as we made our way through our earthly educations. Perhaps you can remember seeing depictions of our solar system and noticing that it seems similar to depictions of cells and even atoms. Maybe you saw pictures of the spiraling universes in the cosmos and related their similarity to the shape and movement of storms here on Earth. The neural network of our brains share similarities to universal neural networks. The nucleus of an atom is the heart of atomic life, just as the sun is the center of planetary life, radiating light and heat toward Earth and providing the cosmic essence to the cosmic sea in which we live, the cosmic sea which saturates our air. This is also true with the cells of our body, with the nucleus of the cell providing the cosmic essence which gives life and guidance to the cells. When we see these amazing facets of our existence, we cannot help but ponder the how and why of things, and to wonder how we can have a conscious experience of them. It is as if we awaken to this magical place that naturally beckons us to explore her being through the gift of awareness. Perhaps the word awaken is key. Might we awaken to recognize that just as we see these physical similarities above and below, that there are also such similarities in the invisible realm regarding consciousness? With observation, we recognize different levels of consciousness that seem to exist outside of the physical world. There is the objective state, that awareness we are using right now to see and listen to this presentation. There is the subjective consciousness, that part of us that contemplates this presentation, relates it to a memory, visualizes certain aspects of it, and so forth. There is the subconscious, where the vast amount of the presentation's information autonomically becomes stored in memory to be recalled and perhaps used later. All of these states together comprise our awareness of the moment, and to gain an understanding that allows our awareness to internally grow from experiences. It is said within scientific and mystical circles that light came not from darkness, for darkness is the absence of light. We can find evidence of this saying right here in this world, in our very own personal conscious journey through life. Each of us lived in a sort of conscious darkness in our earliest years. We have no memory of our first days as conscious beings. As infants, our self-awareness had yet to manifest. As our physical vehicle developed, we gradually became aware of our thoughts and recognized self. From the very moment that we were born, light was always there. We just had to grow into a realization of it. Thus, we made our way from an unknowing darkness into the light of self-awareness. We don't see it this way, but we live not only in our bodies, but also in consciousness. The more time we live in this world of self-awareness, the more we are compelled to ponder it, to try to understand it. Indeed, the makeup of human consciousness, the nature of self, remains largely a mystery to humanity. Behind the event of our birth and our gradual ascension into self-consciousness, there was a guiding force, a seemingly different sort of consciousness that appears to exist all around, constantly creating, making things cluster together, though it doesn't seem to be a self-aware type of consciousness. Indeed, even within us, there is a type of consciousness that guides and breathes and forms us, harnessing ourselves and holding us together as a sentient being, but it seems unaware of us, and we mostly unaware of it. If consciousness is this creative force, then it can be readily argued that everything is conscious, and we can contemplate how we are living in this consciousness. If consciousness, however, is awareness of consciousness, then the question is harder to answer. As an example, we recognize our sun. And of course, this picture here has the moon in front of the sun. It was a wonderful time to see the solar eclipse this year. And this is a picture from that event. But we recognize our sun as an animated, life-giving object. We know the sun grows, contracts, moves, and breathes, so we can ascribe a certain type of consciousness to it. What we are unable to assert is whether or not it is aware of itself. Thus, we can imagine that a form of creative consciousness is everywhere and imbues all things, but not necessarily an awareness of consciousness exists like it does within us. As far as we know, the level of awareness that we experience seems to only exist within us. The traditional Martinist order tradition concurs, stating that humanity forms a separate kingdom because of our inherent power of abstract thoughts. The faculties that humans have are superior in the sense that we are sensitive beings and can intelligently act upon our sensitivities. We belong to the spiritual world, and we are destined to reintegrate with divinity in consciousness. This does not mean we are better than all other kingdoms, but rather that we have a greater responsibility to comprehend and take care of this terrestrial world. We observe the world from a different level of understanding than any other creature. We notice the often cruel tendencies driven by instinctive impulses in nature, even in our own, whether it be destructive storms or the actions of survival among animals. We as human beings see the impersonal harshness within nature, and we often wish we could change it because we care. This is a unique element of the human kingdom, a natural inner compassion and a desire to make things better. We also see and have a hard time understanding the cycles of human life. Life can be sad if we look at it in a narrow way. We are born only to know that at some point each of us, including all of our loved ones who are most dear to us, will pass on. Much heartbreak and emotional suffering stem from our lack of understanding of life's beginning and end. If we could come to a recognition that we are eternal and can operate above the limited viewpoints of our mortal ego, it would help us and all of humankind to advance more quickly towards a larger purpose. And this is what we do in our mystical work. We gradually open our minds to higher dimensions of consciousness through initiations, breathing exercises and vowel sounds, and stimulating our psychic centers to become aware of our psychic body, which naturally exists in all of us. Through our psychic body, we can consciously transcend beyond the material world and more fully experience a connection to our divine source. We aim for the mastery of self and the attainment of the state of cosmic consciousness. Many who have briefly experienced cosmic consciousness liken this experience to an all-knowing, all-loving state, unencumbered by our mortal frailties. One description said it was like entering a room with a flashlight, thinking that the small beam of light showed all there was to see, and then suddenly having the entire room filled with a warming, though brilliant light, shining on everything, removing and recognizing the volume and structure of the room, the floor, the ceiling, and the vastness that was missed. Ponder for a moment our ability to view our universe. The portion of our Milky Way that we can actually see is a very small fraction of the entire galaxy. Although we are advancing in our capabilities to experience the cosmos, we obviously and knowingly have a limited perception. This is also true about our earthly life. Most of us have routines we follow, routes we take to work, whatever the case may be. And there is nothing wrong with this, as we must find ways to function and survive in this world. The point is that each of us only experiences a limited worldview based upon our objective experiences. We create objective patterns that we follow within the realm in which we live, and this becomes our world. Let's take a moment and perform a simple experiment to expand upon this topic. In just a second, we will close our eyes, and in our mind's eye, we are going to count off a minute. 1001, 1002, like that, all the way to 60. And then when finished, we will open our eyes. Let's go ahead and do that now. Close your eyes and begin. Okay, thank you. At least I counted off 1 minute. Hopefully all of you are close to that. Now, we're going to again close our eyes for 1 minute, but this time, rather than counting, we are simply going to let a minute pass by. No counting. Just relax into yourself and allow a minute to pass. Then open your eyes. Ready? Close your eyes and begin. You can open your eyes when you're ready. This simple exercise shows how we often rely on objective anchors, but we also can, with practice, attune with a silent guidance that is precisely directing the cells of our bodies, and on a larger scale, precisely maintaining the orbits of planets. With numbers and material methods, we measure the movement of atoms and stars, but it is an imperceptible creative drive that actually and precisely guides them that is above and beyond our measurements. No matter our activities to understand or explain creation, she just continues to create. It is that creative drive that our awareness seeks to commune with. This higher light is always there. We just have to grow into it, just as we did when we went from infancy to self-awareness. Galileo. He was a great mystic thinker, philosopher, and scientist, among many other things. Through experimentation and demonstration, he showed that the phenomena of our world follows precise mathematical laws. Yet he was perplexed that such things as colors, tastes, and smells seemed to reside only in consciousness and could not be charted out in equations. He observed that these qualities weren't out there in the world, but exist only in the mind. He wrote that if the person having these experiences were removed, all these qualities would no longer exist. It was as if there was a visible, measurable world and another world entirely that existed only in awareness or mind. He and other great minds before and after him therefore thought that there may be separate components to life as we know it. The physical world of things where existence has a place to be, the world of mathematics, wherein we can measure some of the invisible underlying structure and causes, and the world of consciousness, a place where an awareness of the other two can be observed. Science has since leaped forward, but we haven't moved much farther explaining our conscious experiences, such as the enjoyment of the colors of a sunset or the satisfaction of the sweetness of a peach. Mystical traditions state that mind is linked to matter, and that it is through thought that we create within the realm of the terrestrial world. Science has shown that our observations of matter establish the position and form of the elements that compose matter, thus providing some justification and a relationship to mystical axioms. Our Rosicrucian tradition states that the primary goal of all beings is to provide a vehicle for life, and through this medium to give to the universal soul a tangible basis for its cosmic evolution. Our ancient masters stated, "The material world is the mirror in which divinity untiringly contemplates its own reflection." This quote is now repeated with slightly different words by many scientists today. Since the material world is the mirror reflecting the divine, the way to understand the divine is to study those laws by which it manifests on the earthly plane. In other words, we must examine matter. Every spiritual quest must start from the material and the known and gradually rise toward the immaterial and the unknown. In our earthly vehicle, our bodies, is our earthly ego personality, which we relate to our name and which predominates our mortal surroundings. Behind this is the soul personality, which is nameless and carries with it our experiences from each incarnation. We have a natural barrier between the ego personality and the soul personality, as the ego strives to dominate in order to protect us in this world. Our mystical reflections help us to surmount that barrier. Beyond that is a connection to our soul and to the universal soul. Each of us have had or will have experiences as man and woman, as every race and creed, so that we encompass the totality of human experience needed for our ultimate ascension. We journey to calibrate our thoughts through our human experiences to more closely match the processes of the divine. It is not just thought, but how we train ourselves to react to our thoughts. How many of us have kept ourselves awake at night with anxious thoughts or allowed someone else to get into our head? It is not the thoughts themselves that create the anxiety, it is our reactions to these thoughts. Many of us unknowingly relinquish our ultimate power to upset ourselves or to calm ourselves. We must learn to maintain this power for ourselves. Otherwise, we are giving this power to the whims of our surroundings. Science and mysticism agree that behind everything that we perceive, there is invisible energy and vibration. The imperceptible energy causes vibration, which leads to the formation of things. Scientists have made extraordinary advances towards identifying what this imperceptible force that mystics have talked about for centuries might be. The recent discovery of the Higgs boson, sometimes called the God particle, is just such an advancement. The discovery of these fundamental pieces of quantum matter occurred in experiments using the Large Hadron Collider at CERN in Switzerland. On a quantum level, think of the Higgs field as a room where particles of matter gather. When the Higgs boson enters this field, it attracts the particles to one another to begin the process of building matter. Science and mysticism are coming closer together regarding a guiding force behind all creation that may be a form of consciousness. Let's take a look at an experiment and two emerging theories that show a gradual merging of mysticism and science on the subject of consciousness. To begin with, experiments at Berkeley Labs studying photosynthesis have shown that quantum energy may intelligently direct the movement of light before the light actually moves. During their experiments, scientists noticed that light seemed to route itself along the most efficient path of a leaf before the light actually acted. The principal investigator, for this study, Graham Fleming, stated they observed wave-like quantum movement that simultaneously found the most efficient path while also transferring the energy along that path. And this happened with several different leaves, always the energy finding the most efficient path. It seemed that there was guidance beyond space and time that directed the light to the perfect completion of its task. It seemed impossible because it meant that there was a form of energy that moved faster than the speed of light, that was outside the realms of the world that we understand. The experiment proved repeatable and has since led to other theories and experiments in other quantum processes. And as you can see, a link to that experiment is here if you would like to go and study on it more. Paul Draper, a professor of philosophy at Purdue University, has proposed a theory of consciousness called aetherism. It goes something like this. Our bodies make use of sunlight in very complicated ways. Human bodies are immersed in it, but not composed of it. Similarly, perhaps the brain makes use of a consciousness that already exists independently of the existence of brains or nervous systems. On this view, human organisms are immersed in a sort of consciousness or conscious ether that they have evolved to use in very complicated ways, but they are not composed of that ether. There is an omnipresent mind, a world soul or mental ether, if you will, that can interact with the material world, and in particular with the nervous systems of human beings. And we also have a link to that site here on this slide as well. Finally, we come to the theory for researching consciousness called or Orchestrated Objective Reduction, developed in the 1990s by Nobel Prize winning physicist Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff. The theory is based on the idea that consciousness arises within the neurons of the brain and not through interactions between them. Or theorizes that consciousness is a quantum wave vibrating in the universe, and cells in the brain called microtubules convert these vibrations into usable information where consciousness can be transformed into awareness. This superimposition of states could be the measurement or the observation of consciousness. Thus, in this theory, neurons are not just switches that turn on and off, but rather perform far more functions regarding the transfer of light energy. The theory even touches upon reincarnation when it states, in a pre-death state, microtubules lose their quantum state but retain their information. The heart stops, the microtubules lose their quantum state, but the quantum information in the microtubules cannot be destroyed. It just disperses into the universe. And there is no link to a particular website on this, but if you just Google Orchestrated Objective Reduction Theory, you'll see a lot of information on it, and many tests continue to occur on this theory. Brothers and sorors, dear friends, We are free to roam within our human conscious awareness and to listen to what that awareness tells us. It is our greatest privilege to have this self-awareness with the power to ponder within that awareness. This is a unique gift for every human being, and no one can take this power away from you. It is okay to listen and to even be swayed by outside influences when the circumstances or evidence seem to warrant it, for this is also how we learn. But we must also learn that there is a truth that resides within us. It is our unique privilege to have it, to hear it, to explore it, and to contemplate it in the security of our own minds. In the end, the answer to our awareness, to the nature of self, resides wholly and completely within each of us. This concludes our presentation. Thank you all for spending your evening with us. Good night.